And then I just got really drunk and met an old friend. He just happened to come in to the bar. He actually played soccer with my younger brother, and we thought it was a great idea to go get some cocaine. And from that moment on, when I left the bar, I think we were in the same car. I have no recollection until I ended up at a Quick Trip gas station, passed out in my car with the cops knocking on the window, with my car running, radios blaring, and got arrested. And then my parents, their car got towed, and went to jail. That was probably I went to jail probably 5 times in the last month before I sobered up. Like every weekend I was going. Oh, wow. It was almost like the same officer too. It's like, you know, again, when are you going to learn? You know, when are you ever going to learn? So on that last day in jail, which was really, it's really vivid. I was walking in and it seemed like everybody was just screaming. And they were walking me to my cell. They put me in the cell that they're worried somebody was going to self-harm them. So at this point, I was basically out of my mind. And I was just sitting in the middle of my jail cell, and God walked in.
Ty, how does it feel to be the least jacked and tan guy on this podcast today?
Well, I'm always the least tan guy on the podcast. Hold on, Mr. Vitamin D deficient.
Update, I've got a blood draw tomorrow. Ooh. And so we're going to find out if I'm still the whitest disease known to man, vitamin D deficient.
Did you hear about this guy? Yeah, so the whitest disease that you can have is to be vitamin D deficient.
Right.
Which
this dude had it.
Which, 75% of Americans are vitamin D deficient. I don't know if you knew that or not. So
no, don't try to. No.
I'm part of I'm part of an exclusive club.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Here's the deal: as Americans, we don't set the bar very high, man.
That's right. We sit inside and play video games and eat our McDonald's, which is the opposite of what our guest today preaches and does. We are here with Nate Awad, who is a CrossFit coach here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Actually, my wife goes to his gym, or to the box. Sorry, goes to the box.
I guess box.
Is that what y'all call it?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so she was telling me about Nate, and his story was just incredible. And I said, man, we gotta have Nate on the show. So he's also the founder and CEO, and I'm assuming one-man band. I don't know how many you have on staff, but of a company called Jacked Addicts. Yeah. Which is, number one, it's a freaking awesome name.
I was going to say.
Because I'm addicted to being jacked as well, so I love that name. But it has a different meaning than that, which we'll get into here in a minute, which they help. Outreach program helps alcohol and drug, those struggling with alcohol and drug addiction and their recovery. So,
and by the way, if you didn't just talk about something like extremely powerful and important that you do for the community of people that struggle with addicts, I would have called out you calling yourself super jacked. By the way, right? We just breezed right over that.
I was hoping you wouldn't catch that.
Yeah, bro, I'm super jacked and tan.
I'm addicted to it.
Not only did you do it once, you did it twice.
Right.
Now that we've lost half our audience, Nate, man, good to have you here.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. I'm glad to be here. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we kind of gave you the rundown of how we usually do this podcast, and what we want to understand is where you come from, what your story, what your background is. How did you become the guy that not only coaches, CrossFit, but also helps people in their recovery? Right. And you have an incredible story, an incredible personal experience with drugs and alcohol, and that's what we kind of wanted to discuss today. So take us back to the beginning, where you're from, what family life was like. Sure. Give us the rundown.
Yeah, I was born in Denton, Texas, so local boy. Normal upbringing and with my family. My parents are still married. They live locally. They're retired, and just kind of a normal upbringing. I played sports, tons of sports, volleyball, basketball, baseball. Soccer was kind of my thing.
Oh, nice.
Growing up, and I was really competitive in that. Club soccer, traveled a lot, things like that. Had 2 brothers. Nothing really out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
got into high school. I went to Marcus High School in Flower Mound,
Yep.
and wanted to start hanging out with my older brother. He was about 5 years older, and his friends. And that's kind of when I noticed maybe I had some social anxiety. I wanted to fit in, whatever, and that's kind of when I was introduced to drinking beer and smoking pot. And
just early in like freshman year of high school?
I would say, freshman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It kind of started right away because he was leaving high school as I was going in. So there were people, I played soccer on the varsity team when I was a freshman and things like that. And they knew of him and knew of me coming in. So it was kind of just stepping into those people already knowing me, and having an older crowd that I would hang out with. So it was just it started kind of like, okay, well, I like this. I'm allowed to talk to people older than me. I can fit in with them, and just kind of fit in with the crowd. And it just parties on weekends. I would, smoke a joint behind the dumpster and at school and get high going to school and trying to make the bus because the bus was leaving for soccer games and going there and drinking really, it wasn't the biggest part of what I was doing. It was more smoking, marijuana at that time. But I think getting through high school, I got a scholarship to play soccer. It was Tyler Junior College, just a small school in Tyler, Texas, which they were always number 1, number 2 in the nation in the junior college divisions or whatever that was. So it was a really great program, but me and school just never really got along. And they didn't like that I just wanted to party and play soccer and not go to class. So eventually got kicked out, and that's when it was really taking hold. It was just from weekends to it was bleeding into the week of partying and hanging out with the wrong people and just getting myself into trouble. And I was already starting to getting arrested when I was going to school in Tyler, and just getting into trouble. So
do you feel like even in high school, your off the field habits or off the field pursuits were getting in the way of performance? Or do you feel like, all right, I was able to still compete at a high level and still do that, and school was the main thing that suffered?
I think it all started to suffer.
Okay.
I was able to hold on to my performance in sports and soccer and stuff like that longer than I was able to hold on to school.
Yeah.
But it had a huge impact, and it just started, taking over.
What about your parents? And I don't mean specifically around this time, but just growing up, what was alcohol, drug? Were there conversations about those type of things, or was it more just kind of unsaid and you just kind of figured it out on your own?
It was just what we did. If family got together, it was, we drank. My parents were from Missouri, so we would go up there and visit all the time, 2 or 3 times a year. And my grandparents owned a bowling alley, and they had, bowling leagues, and that's what people did, bowling, is drink and eat bar food, and they would just give us free money to play video games, and that was just the life, and that was it. And
so it was always just around. It wasn't like it was a big deal, or it's just part of normal life.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, if I look back at some of my relatives and things like that, they were alcoholics. So it runs pretty deep in the family, and it goes back generations, and a lot of people struggled with it in our family.
Do you remember the first time you tried it and what that experience was like? Did you like it? Was it like all of a sudden you were hooked? Like, do you remember that first time?
Yeah, I remember the first time. I remember the first time I smoked weed. It was with an old friend, and it was just, we were at a construction site and smoking out of a Coke can or something that we poked holes in, and that was it. And I liked it. And then there was just, the alcohol is what took hold.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was probably in college. That's when it really started to just control things. And my life started to revolve around it. And by the time I turned 21, it was like, it was on. I was out of school. I think I was waiting tables somewhere. I used to wait at the Carrabba's right down the road.
Oh,
here.
yeah?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got into, restaurant industry, which, just probably isn't great for an
I was going to
alcoholic.
say,
Sure.
I think that's a challenge too, because I was a server, and right, that's kind of what it was. Is like, okay, hey, I work a 3 to 11 o'clock shift.
Yeah.
I get off, and either my coworkers or I go meet friends, and then you party, and then you sleep in the next day, and then you show up to work that next afternoon.
Right.
Like it kind of seems like that's the cycle, and because it's typically 20 to 28-year-old kids, right? That didn't choose the college route, and so I could see how that could be a hard setting.
Yeah.
That just encourages that for sure.
Right.
You said you liked weed the first time you did. What was it? Did you like the feeling that it gave you? Did you like it allowed you to escape? What was it about
it was the feel, and it was just it was kind of I could just kind of detach from life, and that's.
Were you trying to detach from something, or just it was just
not necessarily?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe from myself or social anxiety or whatever, because that's what and we'll get to this. Once I got sober and clean, like was really apparent that's what I struggled with.
Okay.
Was anxiety and depression and being around people. It took me years to be able to function like a normal human, whatever that means these days.
Yeah, right.
To be able to hold a conversation, not to react a certain way, not to to deal with emotions and things like that. So it was, So
all right. So you're living in Dallas and serving, and the drinking's starting to get out of hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where does it go from there?
So 21 is I was consider myself an alcoholic at that point. Tried a couple different schools. I tried to go to El Centro to be a chef and things like that, because I was in the restaurant industry, and just stayed in the restaurant industry, and became a bartender, which probably was even worse than being a server.
Now you just know how to make them all.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So it just kept progressively getting worse. I got married when I was 24, and that was just a disaster waiting to happen. I just wasn't in a good place to be married to anyone. I could barely take care of myself. So I was a great manipulator and a great liar, and it's probably one of the greatest sales that I've ever made to sell myself for somebody to marry me. And that, right off the bat, just a disaster. So ended up getting a divorce. We had 2 children together, couldn't see my kids, and just kept getting worse. And once that happened, then it was just downhill from there and kept going downhill.
When something bad would happen in your life, whether it be divorce, losing, custody of your kids, did it compound the drinking? Did the drink, did that get worse at that point?
Absolutely.
That was what you turned to?
Absolutely. It was basically, if something bad happened in my life, then I would turn to the alcohol or drugs, and then that would just make things worse. So then I would drink again or do the drugs that were causing the issue.
Yeah.
And it just became this vicious cycle of whatever happened in my life, the solution was drinking or doing drugs, which only made things way worse.
Yeah.
And then I would drink and do drugs again because of
because it got worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a vicious cycle, like you said.
Yeah.
So during this time, like, what were you aspiring to do? Like, did you have a goal? Were you reaching for? You said you tried to go maybe chef school. And there's some different things you tried.
Yeah.
Did you have an overall goal, or was you just surviving at that point?
Basically, all I knew was the restaurant business. So I guess that may have been a goal at the time, is maybe somehow become a manager, maybe own a restaurant one day, or be a chef, something like that. But just the drinking and drugs took hold, and there's no aspirations at some point, because you've done so many bad things that it's just, future doesn't seem feasible. Anything in the future, and it just keeps getting worse.
So it just narrowed life pretty quickly. For you.
Isolated me. I ruined relationships. I would get fired from jobs. It just, the best way to put it is like it just started really isolating me, because I didn't want people to see my mess. I didn't want people to see what was really going on in my life. And then I was able to just drink and do drugs alone. Yeah. Nobody could say, hey, that's a little too much, probably.
Right.
It was just basically me and my demons.
That's the fascinating thing about addiction, and really anything that we seek for immediate comfort, is that we're willing to damn everything else for that fix, for that immediate gratification. So that's the fascinating part about, and I'm sure you've studied this over the years and gotten to know it a lot more, especially what you're doing now. In that time, did you know, like, were you aware that this isn't the path that I should be going down, or were you just so deep into it that it didn't really matter?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
I knew I had a problem. I knew I had, major issues with it. But it's almost like stopping a train from rolling downhill. Yeah. And no matter what I did, I kept going back to it. No matter how many times I went to jail, or, what I screwed up in life. And it just, that was it. And that felt like my lot in life. And that's I was going to die an alcoholic and drug addict.
Wow. And this was all by age 24 that you...
it was probably, I would say age 25 was really when it just, a good 5 years at that point of just really getting dark and lost. And, divorced from my first marriage, and just the issues with the law started stacking up too. Yeah. So I ended up getting 4 DWIs.
Wow.
2 got expunged. I don't really know why. I can't really explain it. So I got really lucky there. In and out of jail. I've probably been in and out of jail 20 times.
Wow.
I didn't really have long stays. 2 months is probably the longest stay. I mean, that's plenty.
That's
one night in jail is long enough.
Yes.
Yeah. So in and out of jail a lot. 10 years probation. I had assault charges, interfering with 911 calls. Just kept stacking up.
Yeah.
Were these just at random parties you were getting in trouble? What?
I would say the majority of it was towards the end of my active addiction. I just couldn't get out. I knew I needed to get out, but I just couldn't. It kept pulling me back in. It was like this really messed up comfort zone that wasn't comfortable at all, but it's like all I knew. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I kept going back to it. Yeah. So I was just, I'd say the last 5 years of my active addiction. So it's probably from 15, and I sobered up and got clean when I was 30. The last 5 years, I started getting into cocaine really bad. Mm-hmm. The alcohol was still there. And basically the cocaine was to sober me up from all the drinking so I could drink more.
Wow. Interesting.
Wow.
And then it became wake up with a bottle of whiskey, probably drunk by 10 a.m. before I had to go to work. Somehow still I worked for my father-in-law at Polis. He somehow kept me on. I mean, he knew what was going on.
Yeah, not to pause you there, but if you're local, Polio's Pizza. Yeah. If you're local here in DFW, you know Polio's Pizza. It's one of the best pizza joints here in the DFW area. And you said your father-in-law is the Polio's Pizza founder.
Uh-huh.
So
that's how I met my wife.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which we want to get into that. But so you start working at Polio's.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
At 25, how old were you at this point?
I was probably about 25.
Right.
Yeah.
So and you're working your way up into a management position. You're running these stores.
Yeah.
All at the same time, you're, severely addicted to cocaine and alcohol. And how did you balance those things?
I found a healthy mix of alcohol and cocaine. And it basically just became waking up with a bottle of whiskey, drunk by 10 a.m., and then
the
doing the cocaine to sober me up, and then getting too high from the cocaine, and then getting drunk again to bring me down. And then
what a wild
that was
fluctuation.
Maybe 3 years.
3 years of that.
Rinse and repeat.
Is that daily? Is that wow?
Daily. And
how are you still sitting here?
Yeah.
That's what I'm like.
I mean, God is really the only answer.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Is really the only answer.
Yeah.
I want to take a quick break and thank our partners, Sleep Number, and highlight a couple things they're doing. Guys, these Sleep Number beds are unreal. The technology that they've created, the feedback that it gives you on your sleep. I've got the app opened up right here. They tell you things like your heart rate variability, your breathing rate, all these type metrics and feedback to give you so that you can improve your quality of sleep. They're all over the place. You can go and check yourself out, a Sleep Number store, wherever you live. Go to sleepnumber.com as well. They've got great resources on there. We just talked about this not too long ago. They have a whole blog section, all these articles, things that you can improve your health. Sleep Number is definitely changing the game when it comes to bedding. So get yourself to Sleep Number, get yourself to sleepnumber.com, and check them out. Now back to the episode.
I think of the movie Flight with Denzel Washington. Have you seen? Have you seen?
I don't know if I've seen that one.
But he's a severe alcoholic, and so he would drink while he's flying these commercial planes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
And then he would drink all night, and then he'd be hurting in the morning, and then he'd take a bump of cocaine, and then he'd fly, but then he'd drink during the flight. Anyways, they got in a crash, but what he did is he saved the flight. He did the absolute only thing that you could do so that not everybody died. Right. Then he goes to court or whatever, and I just remember this scene. And this is I'm extremely empathetic to you, and I didn't struggle to that level. I did in college, I think, with alcohol, but he is supposed to show up in court, and his attorneys found some loophole to get him off, but all he had to do was show up, and he'd been sober for like 20 or 30 days. He was clean. Well, in his hotel, there's a hotel bar, a little mini bar, and he literally it's this scene that he grabs the little mini vodka off, and then they can't get a hold of him the next day.
That's it.
And they go and literally drunk out of his mind, and then they're like, the only thing we can do is just give him more cocaine. So his attorneys give him cocaine so that he can show up to this court case. And just the emptiness that you feel watching it, and just the sadness that you feel watching it. And then I just can't imagine what it's like to live in that place for what you did. So in that time, I mean, how are your parents obviously have to know something's going on, right? With the arrest and stuff like that. So what are the conversations from your family or friends that maybe aren't in that crowd with you, that are outside, that you knew? I mean, are you getting anybody like, hey man, we gotta clean this up?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of conversations like that, but I wasn't ready to hear them. Yeah. And like I said at the beginning, alcohol and drugs, it just isolates you because you don't want people to see your mess. You don't want to let them in. So you will hide it, lie about it, whatever you have to where, they don't know about it. And the funny thing is they know what's going on. You just think you're really clever at hiding.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
they know what's going on. And it's just a sad reality. If the person isn't ready, there's nothing anyone or anything can do to make them ready.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is there anything anybody can say to somebody in that situation, or is it more on that person that they just got to have a
more on
moment
that person? Yeah. They
God,
have to be at a place where they're ready. Because if they're not, then it'll be like that movie. It's that one thought comes into your brain. You can just have one. You've done good. Just one.
So how is a parent supposed to approach that then?
really, really good question. And it's heartbreaking because a parent they'll go bankrupt to help their kid.
Absolutely.
And all that does is enable their kid to continue doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Any sliver of help, any little bit of money, a place to live, whatever it is, we will hold on to our addiction because we feel like we can. We're getting the help that we need to continue on. And it is heartbreaking, to see what my parents went through with me. It just, you don't have any control of it. They don't have any control of you, and they just see their son, death or prison was my destination, basically. Those are the three options: death, prison, or you get free.
Yeah.
And that's what it came down to.
What was your relationship with your own children during this time?
I couldn't see them, wasn't involved. I wasn't a good person. So me being around had no benefit. It would only make things worse.
Wow.
And me and their mother was just so volatile. It wasn't a healthy environment for anyone. So it was just tough.
So take us to that point, maybe that, okay, I am ready. Because, you said, what, 25 to 30?
30 is when I got sober.
30 is when you got sober. What was it at that time that pushed you over the edge?
Yeah, it was hundreds of prayers of, I need your help. I ran everybody off. My mom and dad were barely holding on with a little bit of hope. All my friends, I ran them off. Everybody, just, I just wasn't a good person to be around. I was not I couldn't manage life. I couldn't manage anything. And I would choose drugs and alcohol over anyone. So they held on. And then my last stay in jail, this was, I stole my parents' car. I was telling them I was going to AA meetings. I was stealing savings bonds out of their bank. Somehow I got access to it. So I would steal from their bank, cash those in, get cash. And that was supporting my habit. They didn't know. They eventually found out. And my last go around, I was driving their car. I blacked out. I would black out. And I had no clue where I was going, what I was doing. And this was probably a 4-hour, 5-hour time period. Because I went to a local bar that I always went to. And I would find bartenders that, would know me, or I would know them, or I would be going for a while. And eventually they would, hook me up with drinks and whatever. I was really cunning and I knew how to manipulate.
You're a great salesman.
Yeah, you were a good salesman. Yeah,
good salesman for sure. And then I just got really drunk and met an old friend. He just happened to come in to the bar. He actually played soccer with my younger brother, and we thought it was a great idea to go get some cocaine. And from that moment on, when I left the bar, I think we were in the same car. I have no recollection until I ended up at a Quick Trip gas station, passed out in my car with the cops knocking on the window, with my car running, radios blaring, and got arrested. And then my parents, their car got towed, and went to jail. That was probably I went to jail probably 5 times in the last month before I sobered up. Like every weekend I was going.
Oh, wow.
It was almost like the same officer too. It's like, again, when are you going to learn? When are you ever going to learn? So on that last day in jail, which was it's really vivid. I was walking in and it seemed like everybody was just screaming. and they were walking me to my cell. They put me in the cell that they're worried somebody was going to self-harm them. So at this point, I was basically out of my mind. And I was just sitting in the middle of my jail cell, and God walked in. God walked into the cell and set me free. That moment on, I never had a desire to drink or do drugs again. And it was like he poured warm oil over me, cast out my demons. Goosebumps telling it.
Yeah, me too.
And from that moment on, that was it. That was it. And I don't know why that was the moment. It just was.
Oh.
And I don't know. There was no desire. It was gone. It was taken from me.
Describe that a little bit more. You said God walked in. So you're sitting there in your cell, and then what?
I mean, are you praying?
Yeah.
Are you asking him to
what?
come in? Are you consciously seeking him?
So the friend that I was at the bar with somehow ended up, we weren't in the same car when I got arrested. He was across the jail cell in another cell from me.
So got arrested separately?
Yeah, and somehow
Okay.
ended up in the same jail cell, and he was not himself. When I say like people were screaming, it was a spiritual battle. It seemed like that I was walking into, and I was just sitting Indian style in the middle of the jail cell, just all this screaming going on, and I was at peace and I felt joy. And that's the best way that I can describe it.
When is the last time you think you could honestly say you felt joy in your life before that moment?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe as a little kid playing sports with my brothers or something.
That's amazing.
But from 15 on, no, there's, probably no joy at all.
And just all of a sudden,
I was one way and I was totally different. And the only thing was him in the middle.
So walk us through the next couple days of
were
that.
you
Like,
scared?
what-
Was there any part of you was scared? Like, what happened to me? What?
I was absolutely scared because this was, totally new to me. I've never felt this way. I've never, as soon as prior to that, if I got out of jail, I was looking for somewhere to go to get a drink or whatever. I phoned my parents, and they came and picked me up. They went and got their car that got repoed, and this is divine as well. There are scales in a bag with little baggies, like for distribution of drugs. And I sold drugs growing up, but that wasn't mine. And it was sitting just in the back seat, open. So the cops somehow missed that. My parents were like, "Whose bag is this?" And I didn't know. It wasn't even mine. And they're like, "It was just sitting on the back seat when they picked up the car." So that's another thing. I mean, that's felonies.
I was gonna say you're not in jail for a few days,
right? I'd probably still be there.
Yeah.
So that's another just only him.
Yeah.
And I was scared. I didn't know what life was going to be like. So I immediately got myself into AA.
Yeah.
And the only reason why is I was like, well, the judge is going to make me go anyway, so maybe I could look good in his eyes so he wouldn't put me back in jail.
Right.
Immediately got a sponsor, started working the steps, but I still felt uneasy first 30 days. And then I was like, I need something. I need something else. So my parents helped me get into a rehab facility in Euless, Texas. It was called the Right Step. And that's when I kind of figured, that's when I felt like I feel like this is possible. Like I feel like I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, the urges are leaving, the thoughts, the emotions, all of that started shifting. And in rehab, they knew I got it and I was getting it. There were people in there that have been in like 16, 17 rehab facilities that just don't get it. And it's court ordered. They're going. I went myself because I felt like I needed more help. And then I was helping people in the rehab with their situations. And even the counselors were like, yeah, talk to Nate. He has, an incredible story, and he just kind of gets it. So that was a unique experience as well. And then after rehab, I stayed in AA for maybe about a year. I didn't work all the steps. There's 12 steps in that AA program. I just kind of felt like I outgrew AA. It was good at getting me from -10 to 0. I needed a plan after that. And I didn't want to be stuck in these meetings, in these rooms, smoking cigarettes, down in pots of coffee, energy drinks. It was just a really, for me personally, an unhealthy environment.
Yeah.
I needed more. I needed more to life. I needed something more.
Yeah.
Going back to those first 30 days, and you said you didn't have the desire anymore. Did you completely shut it off all the way? Those first 30 days? So were you physically sick? Like what? How were you physically?
I didn't get sick.
Really?
I had no detox symptoms, anything like that.
No way.
Yeah.
After 10 years of just about everyday abuse, you stopped just like that.
Yep. Just like that. Never went back to it again.
Oh my gosh.
And prior to that, I tried hundreds of times to get sober and clean, and nothing. In those times I would get sick, and that's why I would go back to it. I'm like, it ain't worth it.
Do doctors or anybody, do they have an explanation?
It's just divine intervention.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the only
They
explanation.
can't explain it.
Walk us through the rehab, right? So for those that have not been inside of it, when you say the help, what are you going through? What are your counselors? What are the people helping you figure out through that process?
So rehab is basically, it's taking you out of your environment. And they're trying to help you figure out why you're coping with drugs and alcohol. And trying to just figure out life and how you can move forward without it. And like I said, there's people in there that have, they're in and out of rehabs, and they're just not ready, and they don't quite get it, or something like happened to me didn't happen to them yet. So a lot of it is just people that don't want to be there per se, and then the counselor's just managing that with people that don't really care.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of it. And maybe out of all the people that were in there, is maybe me and another person that kind of cared that we were there, and we wanted to try and get better.
Yeah.
Most of it's court ordered. People just getting away from their current life situation,
parents
just getting out,
them go,
just getting out of their situation, which as soon as they get out, and most of the time they'll leave early, they can't necessarily keep you there.
Yeah.
And they're off to the races again. And I stayed in contact with several, and they, a lot of them end up getting back to it and ODing and dying.
So when you talk about finding something more than AA, it sounds like you needed purpose, something to keep you wake up in the morning and excited about making an impact. And obviously, you had a moment with God where, okay, hey, I'm assuming you thought, okay, he saved me for something. And so what is that when you say, okay, hey, this isn't a good environment, but I need something more? What does that process look like, trying to figure that out for you?
Just diving into becoming, like you said, I felt like, he saved me for a reason. And diving into becoming almost a vessel that he could use to help others. But I had to help myself first. And that was, I got into working out.
Yeah.
This lady would take us, or she would come into the rehab once a week or twice a week, run us through a little yoga workout or whatever, but I liked it.
Yeah.
And it felt good. It kind of hit the same parts of the brain as the drugs and alcohol did.
I was just going to ask, because we say that, but coming from somebody who's personally experienced it,
Yep.
it felt
that
same kind of good feeling.
That was it.
Wow.
And it felt great. So then started working out just at my apartment gym, looking up Men's Health Fitness, the next workout that they had, and just kind of went at it on my own. And then had a buddy who he actually baptized me in Lake Louisville, really good friend of mine, Chris Smith. He owned a CrossFit gym, and he's like, "Hey man, you got to try this." It's like, nah, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Or somebody's going to get hurt or whatever, you know.
Hot yoga's
you
my
know,
thing.
all that stuff. Yeah.
Nah, bro, I actually like wearing a shirt when I work out, so I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Exactly. Yeah. And one day I tried it out and just absolutely fell in love with it. I remember my first WOD, my first workout. And that just, the community aspect of it, that gave me my community that I needed. And it did more for me mentally than it ever did physically. And it still does to this day.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I call it taming the silverback in my mind.
Yeah.
And
good.
if I go 2 days without working out, you know, Amber, my wife, is like, you should probably go work out, huh? Has it been a couple days?
No, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
It feels so odd to not get some sort of sweat in
Yeah.
for the day.
And Whitney usually just tells him every day,
Yeah.
maybe you should just leave
Right.
and go work out or do whatever you gotta do. Just don't be here.
You mentioned Polio's Pizza earlier, your father-in-law. So when did you get married to your current wife? When did y'all meet? I mean, was she with you through?
We were together the last part of my addiction, and I was really good at hiding it for a long time. She really had no clue. She knew we would go out and drink and things like that, but I was just really good at hiding it.
Did her dad know? I mean,
he knew, because he knew from the previous marriage and everything that went down there. And I mean, at some point I was living out of my car and I was homeless and things like that. So he knew the type of person I was. And it definitely was not the type of person he wanted his daughter to be married to. So it's a pretty crazy story. So we were together, talked about marriage, maybe engaged at that point. And then it just all started unraveling for me. So I would get drunk at work, and I just knew people's schedules, and the next restaurant over, you know, I knew the bartender there. And so I get drunk at work, and then I almost ran over somebody delivering a pizza, and it happened to be like an off-duty officer. And he called the police on me. I got arrested at work, so his restaurant. And I told the police that, you know, I know all the managers in the restaurants here, and we're going to, you know, spit in your food, anybody that's a police officer. So it's really, I'm not too proud of that moment.
Sure.
And then he got to the city councilor or whatever, and they're like, well, we're just not going to, you know, eat at your restaurant and whatever if you don't fire this person. So he ended up firing me, and that's when we separated. That's kind of when he found out we were together, because we were hiding it. Because he's Palestinian. He's got some old traditions that he held on to. And, you know, I probably wasn't the typical, or the man that he wanted to marry his daughter. And he even eventually had a bad relationship with her and didn't want anything to do with her. And then that's when we separated, and that's when it all really kind of went downhill. And then when I went into rehab, we weren't talking or anything. I actually went to a florist before I went in, and I had them have it delivered when I was halfway through rehab to her. And it was just this little note on there. I was like, you know, please don't kill these ones, because there was an inside joke. She would always kill the flowers that I get, or plants. So that was delivered to her, and then that just sparked like whatever she was doing in life. And I I made a promise to her that I would give her the man that she deserved if she would give me another chance.
Wow.
So she visited me in rehab once, and then that was it. I think we got married 6 months from when I was clean and sober.
Wow.
Yeah.
How big of a part of your sobriety was she in that moment? 6 months in, how much more influence did that have on you, that relationship with her?
Huge.
Yeah.
And just like I said, it was, I wanted to give her the man she deserved that she never really got. And that was a huge driving force. And that was a prayer of mine in rehab, God, if you can do whatever you have to do to keep me clean and sober, and I want her back, and do what you need to do to get her back. And I promise you, I will stay clean and sober.
Yeah. So you had the purpose of, helping others through rehab. You had the purpose of being the man that your wife deserved. Mm-hmm. And then eventually you decide that you wanted to create Jacked Addicts.
Right.
Where did that come into play? Where did that idea come from? Tell us about that.
So I mentioned I started CrossFit. My friend convinced me to do that. Fell in love with it. Eventually, this is what I want to do. I got a job back with my father-in-law at Polis for a little bit. Yeah. And then I just fell in love with CrossFit, and I got my L1 certification, and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. So I opened up my own CrossFit gym. It's called CrossFit Silverado. It was in McKinney. Ended up opening two. There's CrossFit Silverado and Silverado North, which was kind of Salina, Prosper, McKinney area. And I just loved helping people. And what I noticed was that the people that I could really help were people that struggled with alcohol and drugs, either in it currently or recovering alcoholics and addicts.
Yeah.
And it just kept, hey, this person's really getting this. I'm helping them change their life. And, it just happens to be, recovering alcoholic or addict. Had to sell the first one that I owned because the land was sold on it, and I had to get out of that. Second one I had to shut down because of COVID and the pandemic.
Yep.
Tried to open that one back up, but just people weren't coming back fast enough, and it was a pretty hefty rent. So I just couldn't do it anymore. So I had to shut those doors down. But probably 2 years prior to shutting that one down, I got into online coaching. Huh. I would help anybody. Right. There wasn't a focus on anybody particular, anybody that wanted to lose weight, build muscle, whatever it was. I would help them. And then just one day it was like, well, the people that you can really make an impact in their life are people that are trying to get out of the same hell that you crawled out of. Mm-hmm. And that's when it started really, okay, your main focus is helping people that are battling addiction, regardless if they're still in it or if they have years of sobriety, to become that better version of themselves. Yeah. So when I mentioned that AA was really good at getting me from -10 to 0 and I needed a plan after, that became the plan for everybody else I ran into. And that's how Jacked Addicts came around. I called it something else prior, and I was still kind of on the edge of like, should I just dive in and just help? Because everybody that I talk to, they're like, well, if you get somebody, close to the fire still and still in active addiction, not all the people have the resources to do your program.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But what I have found is the majority of people who are alcoholics and addicts are people who have on the outside their life together.
Yeah.
The perception is I have a career, I have a house, I have a family, but the inside of me is dark and in a bad place. And it's just a matter of time before it all starts to unravel.
Yeah.
Wow.
So most people have that perception of alcoholic addict is homeless under the bridge, drinking a 40 out of a brown bag. And that may be 20% of addicts.
Yeah.
It's the majority people just trying to hold it together.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned the feeling that working out gives you. Does serving and helping others, does that give you that same?
It's the joy of my life to see somebody come out of the darkest place they've ever been and get free from alcohol and drugs.
Yeah, I bet. So is Jacked Addicts, is it an online, like what can somebody expect if they go visit the
So it's
website?
an online, so I have clients all over. I just had a client sign up. He's in Australia, in Europe, Canada, kind of all over the place. So it's virtual. And yeah, it's a heavy focus on nutrition, getting our food right and eating, because we destroyed our health with alcohol and drugs. That has to be a top priority. Working out and fitness. So I give them custom nutrition plans, custom workout plans. And then we're working on the mindset. We're working on stress management. We're working on time management, handling triggers, handling temptations. Oh, man. Just a whole overhaul of what their life looks like after addiction.
Yeah.
All right, I want to take a quick minute to talk about our partner, Choctaw Casino and Resort. We are really, really humbled and grateful to be a partner for them. If you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you've heard how great the resort is there, how great the casino is, the new expansion. They've doubled in size, 3,000 new slots. They've got unbelievable sports bar. They've got unbelievable restaurants, unbelievable movie theaters, arcades for kids. It is endless, the things that they've not only improved but added. But it's just the experience that they provide is second to none. Choctaw Nation has done an incredible job with the community, with philanthropy, with support. They have just done incredible things. So we are extremely humbled and grateful to partner with Choctaw Casino and Resort. Make sure, I know you know it, but it's just a short drive up 75. Go check them out. And now back to the episode.
Wow.
I love that. So when you had your gyms before, Jacked Addicts came to be, how did you connect, right? How did you find the people that were struggling with addiction or had struggled with addiction that maybe are on the other side of it? But I mean, like they say, once an addict, always an addict, right? Mm-hmm. You've always got something that you're having to constantly address and constantly just be cautious about, right? Mm-hmm. So, but you're in a gym, and I mean, CrossFit, I'd say the community gets really close, but there's constantly new people in and out, right? But were you just transparent with your story from the very beginning? Like, this is who I am, this is what I've gone through, or how did you find and connect with those types of people?
It took me a while. Mentioned earlier, it took me a good 2 years to be able to function in society, because I just didn't know how to do it. I mean, paying bills, something simple as that. I avoided that, and I drank because I didn't want to do any type of responsibility. So that took me a while. But when I had the gyms, I was just really vulnerable about my story. And people knew that I was a recovering alcoholic and addict, and they just really drew to my story. And opening gyms and helping people and things like that. So they would almost come to me because I was so open about my story and sharing my testimony and what I went through, that they would open up as well. Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily I would have to go find them or anything. And that's the same thing I do now with the gyms closed with just Jacked Addicts is I'm on Instagram. Yeah. And I find people there, and I share my story, and I do these reels and these videos that really pertain to, like, if somebody is battling with addiction and they go to my page on Instagram, they will feel like somebody gets it. Somebody understands what they're going through. And I even get people that reach out to me and they're like, I don't struggle with addiction, but my spouse does, or my kid does. Or, hey, what do I do? My son is you're describing what my son is going through. How do I handle that? So it's touching people that aren't even battling with addiction. And what it comes down to is you either dealt with addiction, you're going through it, or somebody that has or is. Right. It touches everybody in some way. Absolutely. So it's just amazing to see just what telling your story and sharing your testimony and what you've been through can really do for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that was it. And just me being super vulnerable about what happened to me and what I went through and how I made it out.
Yeah.
Has really done for people.
Speaking of that, you've got 4 kids now. You've got Lucan, Caroline, Rylan, and Forrest.
Right.
Well done, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
It's good.
How
I can't remember my own kids' names.
Yeah. I was like, yeah.
Now ask them all of their birthdays.
Yeah.
well, they're 11, 10, 7, and 4.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You got it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Show up.
What's your conversations with them about addiction? The 11 and 10-year-old especially are starting to get to that age.
Yeah.
Like, how are you broaching this? I think this is one of my fears as a parent is, because like you said earlier, you can have the world's greatest parents, and for whatever reason, you've just got this addictive mentality.
Right.
So what are you telling your kids? How are you approaching parenthood when it comes to addiction?
I'm open and honest. They know what addiction is. They know what alcohol and drugs are. They know what their dad went through. They know how their dad overcame it. I'm open and honest. And I think that's the way it's got to be.
Yeah.
Because if you do hide it, I mean, they're my offspring. They probably got some tendencies.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you can see addiction in all areas of my life. The way I work out, the way I'm rigid with my nutrition and eating, the way I handle situations in life, it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
And that continues on. But I've been able to harness that and use that for positivity rather than destructiveness.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? The same obsessive, 0 to 100 mentality that got you in trouble for 15 years is now the same mentality that makes you so successful. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I ask potential clients that I work with, I give them a questionnaire to fill out, really detailed, and just their experience and what they're going through. And one of the questions is, think back about when you're chasing drugs and alcohol, how much money, time, resources, energy did you put into chasing drugs and alcohol? Well, what if we turn that towards you becoming the best version of yourself? Just a fraction of that.
Yeah.
What is possible for you?
Yeah.
And
That's a great
it
question.
blows their mind.
Yeah.
Because at first, I think back of the money I spent. It was, probably a ballpark is $250,000 easy.
I was going to ask you, you made the
That's
video
probably
on your Instagram of when you see how much money you spent on drugs and alcohol. So you think it was that much? Wow.
Yeah. And that's probably conservative.
Sure.
Number. Very conservative.
That's the other amazing thing is how addicts are able to scrounge up the resources to continue feeding
resourceful,
the
man.
There's a level, and look, I'm not glorifying, but there's a level of discipline to it, right? Like you said, if you can just translate these skills that you acquired through addiction, use those in this area in a healthy way,
right,
that brings good things to yourself and other people. Imagine the impact that you can make.
Right.
Man, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like there's discipline, like to wake up in the morning and chase that addiction, right? And to do that constantly.
Absolutely.
Man, I never thought about that. That's wild.
And you meet really successful and passionate people, and a lot of them, there's really successful recovered alcoholics and addicts because of that mentality of this is what I crawled out of, and let's use that same tenacity into achieving whatever they want to achieve.
Yeah. So you're how old now?
44.
44. 4 kids, married. Awesome life now. Probably didn't foresee this.
No. Never thought this was even
14
possible.
years ago.
No.
What's the future? Like, where do you go from here? How do you continue to serve people? How do you continue to impact lives?
I want to create a ministry around this very thing, my online program, because I talked about it earlier, AA, NA, rehabs, detoxes, establishments, whatever, they're really good at getting you sober. But there's not much help after that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real huge disconnect. to people, and I'm not saying any of these programs are bad in any way. What they do, that has to be almost a sole focus.
They serve that purpose.
That's their purpose.
Yeah.
To get you away from it.
Yeah.
So I have found that there's not anything past that.
Yeah.
Does
You
any
need
part of you
like you've got the American Airlines, right? The American Airlines takes you from Dallas Fort Worth to LA, but you need the Uber to get you from the airport to the hotel.
Yeah.
I'm big on conspiracies right now.
Right. Who isn't?
Does any
Right?
part of you think that's by design?
Absolutely.
That there is no true rehabilitation, that it keeps you coming back? They make you just enough. Is there any part of you that thinks that?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not totally crazy.
No. No.
I mean, I just think that all aspects of society
Right.
where we do that, medical care.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
They
this
want
is what you're talking
lifelong
about.
customers.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't make money off people that are
Right.
clean, sober, strong, independent.
Right. Right.
God, that sucks.
Have you felt any pushback anywhere on attacking this segment of like lifelong sobriety and purpose?
I mean, pushback, not necessarily, but I mean, there's people, trolls on social media and things like that, which I don't even care. I just say thanks for your support.
Yeah.
I really, it means a lot to me.
Tell Pfizer I said what's up.
Yeah, right.
Bunch of lobbyists.
So no, but that is also, you're helping people get free from something that makes certain people money.
Absolutely.
So
The bigger you get, I'm sure you will start to see that.
absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. Which only fuels my fire because it means I'm doing what I need to be doing.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah. Yeah. When you start ruffling feathers, you're onto something.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I've come to realize these past few, especially really the past few years. It's just the disruption means you're onto something.
Anytime I get a little resistance around something, that means I dive headfirst into whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's great.
Man, I love your story so much. I love how open you are about it. I love how honest you are. Not once did you make a single excuse for your behavior. And even though, you legitimately had issues that, maybe were out of your control. And I mean, I know there's somebody listening that can feel what you're talking about. And as maybe they're going through this right now. What do you say to that person? If somebody's struggling with this, they're hiding it well, they're functioning still, like you said, most people are. How do you encourage that person? What would you say to that person?
Reach out. Just reach out. Don't lose hope. If it's like me, you've tried 100 times, just don't quit trying. Just don't. Because that's when you truly lose at this, is when you stop trying to get free from it.
Yeah.
And then all hope is gone.
Yeah. How important is hope in this process?
And faith.
Oh, man.
Hope and faith.
I think it's everything, because I, left to my own devices, there's two paths, is prison or death. So you have to have faith. You have to have hope, because if you don't, then we are our own demise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can people connect with you? What's the best way to find you?
Best way, Instagram, Nate_Awad.
Okay.
AWAD.
AWAD.
I was looking up Jacked Addicts. That's what I was doing. I wasn't just on my phone. I was.
He's sitting there on his phone while we're sitting here having an intimate
a
discussion.
So my personal account there, and DM me.
Yeah.
And then we can connect, and we can hop on a call and connect. And I want to hear their story.
Yeah.
I want to hear what's going on. I want to share my story with them to give them some hope and know that there's ways out, and there's ways to get free from this.
Yeah. Have you considered starting a podcast yourself?
Actually, yeah, I have.
Look at you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, if there's anything we can do to help on that
any
front,
support we could provide.
We have no clue what we're doing, but we are a little bit ahead of you in the fact that we started this.
Yeah, we've just been doing it. That's it. Right. That's it.
No, but I think you have a message, and you could touch so many people.
Yeah.
With your story and your encouragement, you clearly have a gift for encouragement.
Yeah.
and for helping people through these situations.
Yeah, man, and just encourage you, man. The transparency that you show. The thing that we found on this podcast is really the people that are making the real impact are real. And I think through this Instagram age, we're starting to get good at calling out the BS, right?
Yeah.
And so just, man, appreciate your transparency and authenticity about it, because that's how you're going to get people to come out of the shadows into the light, right?
Absolutely.
So, man, I appreciate you and all that you're doing. And dude, we're fans forever.
Yeah, huge fans.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Really.
We'll have to go on the website and get some T-shirts.
So maybe we'll do a fundraiser. We'll do a WAD, you versus Ben,
Man,
and I'll be the judge.
The guy that doesn't do, the only guy that doesn't do CrossFit.
No rep, no rep.
There we go.
No rep,
Yeah.
no rep.
How about you do it versus him? You actually do CrossFit.
I'm down.
No, I didn't call myself jacked twice.
If 60 minutes,
on the
Yeah,
show.
you got to live up to it now.
if 60 minutes of bicep curls is CrossFit, then yeah, I do
You're in.
CrossFit.
Hey, cardio, just lift weights faster.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Man, Nate, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. We'd love to have you back on.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I want to continue here how the podcast starts going, how Jacked Addicts,
Yeah.
the progress there. And man, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It was just an honor to be on the show. So
Absolutely, man.
thank you
Our
guys.
pleasure. And again, fans for life, man. Anything we can do to support you, just let us know.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
Yeah.